We'll go over an overview of the program and talk about what organizations are eligible to apply, as well as what expenses are eligible through the grant program. We'll talk about the application, which there are some things that have been updated, but it's fairly similar to past years if you have applied previously. And we'll also go through where to go look for the application if this is your first year applying. And we'll talk about evaluation criteria. And then we'll also talk about submitting grant reports and what we're looking for when you receive a grant and then you finish up and we need your receipts and information about your grant. So we'll talk about that. Also talk about the timeline of grant applications this year, as well as the timeline of if you're awarded a grant for receiving those funds when it comes to getting in paperwork with our procurement department. And then, yes, we'll again talk about application process and the program support we offer, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. So the organizations that are eligible to apply, this has not changed, but any nonprofits, any community-based organizations, neighborhood associations, any sort of club at a school, maybe a high school club, or clubs at Clark College, parent-teacher groups, whether that's the PTA, PTO, informal groups, and any sort of collaboratives. And then the organizations that are ineligible to apply are any for-profit businesses, any government agencies, which include county agencies, schools. So you might hear schools, but the parent-teacher groups are still eligible to apply. The schools themselves and the districts are not eligible to apply. And then any political organizations. Eligible expenses, this also has not changed this year. Any materials that you might need for an event or a program, any fees related to rentals, if you have insurance policies that you're hoping to cover for an event, that can be included in your budget, any food and non-alcoholic beverages, and then professional services such as translation, interpretation, any sort of design contracting with artists, printing, advertising. And that is something we definitely encourage because in the application this year, you'll see a question expanding on how you plan to reach folks for your event or program, and these expenses can be utilized to help support that outreach. And then there is a note at the end. Funds that are awarded in this grant cycle must be spent in this calendar year. And I'll touch a little bit more on this later on in the timeline because the very last grant application period, it's really important to get paperwork in because the turnaround time to process that and then get the funds sent over for you to spend is much tighter. So, applications, this should say applications. Your application, this is the evaluation criteria. So, your application should address an unmet community need. And what reviewers will look for this is that you clearly name your need that your project is trying to address and that you include details that the need is not currently being met. So this could include details like statistics, survey results, feedback from community members, or real examples that show that the problem continues. And one thing that we do want to note with this criteria is that we recognize that there will be multiple programs that might be working to address a need. And so any need is considered unmet if, or any need is considered met if it is no longer a challenge for the community. So we absolutely encourage multiple groups working to address different needs and or the same need and collaboration and partnership around that. Additionally, your applications should align with a city council priority and strategic plan focus area. And you can find those to the right of your screen. And then in the application, we'll also have a link to the strategic plan focus area, as well as on our grant website that you can dive into each of those to really see what they're hoping to achieve and then include those details in your application. I can't emphasize enough that the evaluation criteria really the review team looks for applications that build community partnerships. A key part of this grant is building community and strengthening community. And so that's why we really look for that. For an example, if a PTA, parent-teacher organization, is planning an event, try to think about who else can help expand that impact. Could you partner with a local nonprofit, a culturally specific organization, or a neighborhood association? Could you include a food pantry program to help support families? And so the goal really is to reach more people and serve the community in a bigger way than anyone could alone. So we want to hear who's involved, what each partner is contributing, and how the partnership strengthens your program or event. And strong collaboration makes for a strong application. We are looking for programs and events that positively impact the community and events and programs that support inclusion and community involvement. Reviewers really want to know who will benefit from the grant and how they will be served. I'm going to go back really quick because there was one note on eligible expenses that I wanted to make. When you're filling out your application, there is a section that asks for your budget. And in that section, we want you to include as many details as you possibly can, but we also recognize that some of those might be estimates at this point. But it's really important to include specifically like which eligible expenses that you're hoping to use funds on. And if you are awarded a grant and at some point you need to shift to a different eligible expense in this list, we just ask that you reach out to the Office of Neighborhoods, and we'll include the email at the end of this presentation. And that just helps us ensure that the expense you're shifting to can get approved and is still eligible, and that we have a note of that for when you are filling out your grant report. The funds from this grant are public funds, and so we do have audits of the grant, and so we want to ensure that the grant that was approved aligns with the receipts and expenses that you're sending in your grant report. Keeps going backwards for some reason. Okay, inclusion criteria. So continuing on with our evaluation criteria and expanding on that last point, here's some areas that the review team uses to evaluate the benefits and engagement of your program or event. So we have a city's equity index, which will also be linked in the application itself for you to view, and a screenshot of that is on this slide, and I believe it's the tiny URL is also linked there, so you can explore that tool. Looking for support of neighborhoods with poor access to community spaces or services, and then also serving a diverse group of community members. And then that group, just to give some more background, this is listed on our website as well under evaluation criteria and will be included in the application this year as well. So we'll just ask you to share a little bit about who is benefiting from this grant. Oh, I think someone might be unmuted. There we go. Who's benefiting from this grant and who you might be doing outreach to and partnering with. So this year we wanted to share a little bit more about the review team's process so that it is transparent and clear to folks as you go into your application. So this is the scoring criteria that the review team will be utilizing as they go through each section. And our review team is comprised of city staff from all different departments, and community members. And that I also wanted to make a note. I know all of you are here tonight because you're interested in applying for the grant, but if you know any community members who might not be connected with an organization directly that is applying for a grant, we would love to have them as part of the review team. So again, I'll share our email at the end and we'd love to connect if there's anyone that comes to mind when I say that. So we're really looking for 4 really meets or exceeds expectations. A 3 is still a adequate score. And then 2 is where we don't have enough information. The review team needs more information or they have questions. And so the application will be sent back to the applicant and they'll be encouraged to apply again, just providing more information. And then 1 is it either doesn't meet expectations or it's misaligned with some part of our criteria. And a note for number 2, as part of the support that I'll mention later, I go through the applications as they're received. If they come in a timely manner before the review period, like if they're coming in at midnight, the night that it's due, I might not have enough time to review it and get back to you. But if you submit it early enough, I will review it and make sure everything that's needed for the review team is included. So I do my best to try to give feedback and send applications back into draft to provide as much opportunity to submit your very best application and provide that support along the way if anything gets missed. So grant reporting. If you are awarded a grant, we ask that recipients complete an impact and outcome report within 30 days of completing your project. You will receive an email from our grant program reminding you about this, and then we'll also have the information about where to find it. It's in the same place as where you go to apply for the grant. It'll be in your dashboard, but there will be reminders. And then the report, we ask you to include project outcomes, number of people that have been engaged, and then how the money was spent. So we'll ask you to submit receipts because our grants, you do have the option through our procurement team to spend your own funds and submit for us to send you exactly what you've already spent. The majority of our grants that I've seen come through, we award the funding up front. And so we need to be able to account for all of that at the end. And if there's any money that is not accounted for in those receipts or went unspent, we'll ask for a check to be sent back to the city. And again, in grant reporting, we're really looking for if there's anything that comes up as you're going through, if you've been awarded a grant and anything comes up where you need to shift, please just be in touch with the Office of Neighborhoods. We just want to make sure we have everything noted and there's no surprises when it comes to the grant report. And then the grant report, if you do have a project that, let's say, the end date is December 31st. You're still eligible to utilize those funds, and then you would still have those 30 days to complete that report. So the report is not due by the end of the calendar year if your grant ends at the very last day of the calendar year. There's one more thing I wanted to mention about that, but I am blanking, so we'll touch base on it later. Oh, if you are unable to complete your grant report in the time that is allotted, please again just be in touch with us. We can be flexible and we can make note of that. The only thing we don't want is for there to be no grant report, and that would make you ineligible going forward for our grant program. And we don't want that either. So just let us know and we will work with you. This is our program timeline for 2026. So the applications are going to open in March and we will have awards. The review team will review in mid-April and we'll be announcing those shortly afterwards. Then we'll also have a review round in June. And then the last review round will be in September and mid-September. And I do have a note that I wanted to make in regards to that. The turnaround time, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but the turnaround time for getting grant funds for that September period and getting in your paperwork, it's a little more condensed with the end of the year. So please just keep that in mind, especially if there are any sort of, let's say like Halloween events, they might come up really soon. So we might encourage you to apply for the June deadline if at all possible. And that gives you more time to receive your funds, to be able to spend them if you need the grant up front to complete your project. And then there is a note at the bottom that applications may close earlier if funding runs out. And we'll go over funding amounts that are available this year in a few slides. So here is just a quick overview of that, the amount of time that it takes once the grant is awarded. We'll send you all this paperwork. There's a grant agreement for you to sign. And if you need to utilize a fiscal sponsor, we'll connect with that fiscal sponsor. So your organization will sign the grant agreement and the fiscal sponsor will sign it as well. And that will come through DocuSign. And then we'll ask for a W-2 that will be sent to procurement services. And then you'll include the Office of Neighborhoods. So we're aware that that got sent to procurement. And then if you want a check for your funds, that typically can be processed within 7 to 14 business days. And then if you opt for direct deposit, that one takes a little bit longer, so 3 to 4 weeks. So we just wanted to include this so you can plan in terms of timing of when you apply and the amount of time it'll take to receive your funds if you're awarded. So application process, there'll be a link to the application when it goes live on the Community Neighborhood Grant website, and I will post that in the chat when I get out of all of this presentation. And if you've applied before, you can use the same email address and password. You can use the same exact, user profile. And if this is your first time, you'll create a new account. And there's some information here on that screen as well, giving directions for if you are a new user. And if you're an existing user and you've forgotten your password, or let's say you've had staff changes and your organization is in the system, but you want to use a different email address, get in touch with me through the Office of Neighborhoods, and we can handle that all on the back end of things. So here's a little bit more of a close-up of what that looks like. And then this year, the application is broken up into 4 sections, and it's very similar, but there have been a few additional things added to help gather the information that reviewers are looking for as they're doing their evaluation. So we really wanted to prop up the questions as much as we could with prompting information. And we've broken it into the same sections that the reviewers will be going through as well. So project eligibility this year, you will see questions that mirror what is listed on the website in terms of eligible organizations that we went through, and then eligible expenses as well. And this helps, this is the very first question. It'll help determine if it makes sense for you to continue with your application, or if you might not be eligible for the grant. And then we'll ask for information about your project. We want as much detail as possible. Please share information as if it was the first time anyone was hearing about your organization or the program or event, because our review team, it may be their first time hearing about it, so they really want to know as much as possible. And then there'll be a section about community benefit, which we went over earlier, and then your funding request amount and your proposed budget for that as well. So changes, as I mentioned earlier, we are adding some prompting information so we can provide reviewers with the most amount of information that we could possibly get from you, so that they have what they need to score your application. And then funding, that's probably a big question that is maybe in the chat that I haven't seen yet. But funding this year, for 2026, we have $80,000 available total. So that means we will have 60 Level 1 microgrants available. Microgrants are up to $500. And then we will have 10 Level 2 grants available, which is up to $5,000. And I wanted to make a note that we are going into a budget cycle, so there may be more funding available later on in the year, and I will absolutely be announcing that if that does come to fruition. But know that we're working to get more funding. It may or may not happen. So for now, just focus on these numbers. Then support, as I mentioned earlier, you're always welcome to reach out to the Office of Neighborhoods with any questions as you're filling out your application, if you need support filling it out too. I am available as well to do an initial review of your application for completeness and give some feedback before it goes to our review team. And then as well, if you don't have access to a bank account, your organization doesn't have access to a bank account, you're a new club or something like that, we can work with you to help give some ideas of who might be able to be a fiscal sponsor for your grant. And that, I think, we've done it. So I'm going to now check the chat and try to go through some of the questions that I'm sure are in there. Let's see. Okay. First question I'm seeing. How do we find out about the demographics of our neighborhood association community members besides the map you showed? That's a great question. So the City of Vancouver's website, there is a section at the top for data, and we have an open data hub, and there are different neighborhood maps that will show you different demographics based on census data. So you can access that. For an event in October, if we plan the event before the grant is awarded, can we save our grant receipts for reimbursement? That's a great question. So we are not, when we go through the review process, if your event has already happened, when we're reviewing your grant, we're not able to fund that. So we can only fund events and award grants for programs and events that have not happened at the time of the review of the grant. For neighborhood
Can I
associations.
follow up? Can I follow up?
Sure.
That was my question, so I just have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So the grants are awarded in September, but we're planning a big community event in October, after the grant is awarded, but we have to like secure event space and all of that before the grant is awarded. So if the event happens after the grant's awarded, but we need to spend money before it's awarded, can those receipts get reimbursed?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If the event has not happened yet, that can be awarded still. Yes. And reimbursed. For
Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. For neighborhood associations with volunteers, what do we submit for a procurement process so we can get a check? Our neighborhood association does have a checking account. Yes, you will use that. We'll send a W-2 form. I believe there is nothing, unless you are an official nonprofit 50c3, there's nothing for neighborhood associations necessarily to fill out. And procurement has told us that it is okay for you to fill in, write in that you're a neighborhood association. And they will follow up if they need any additional information. And the deadline to apply. So, previously we've called them rolling deadlines, but that might not be as accurate. So we have multiple deadlines. The first deadline to have your grant reviewed will be, let me pull up the exact date. The April deadline is April 10th. The June deadline is June 5th. And the September deadline is September 18th. And that will all be listed on our website as well. Can a neighborhood association apply for more than one microgrant per year in different cycles? Great question. Because we have limited funding, any organization is only eligible to apply for one grant. So if you apply for a level 2 grant, you would not be able to then apply for a microgrant, and then you also cannot apply for 2 microgrants. Is this for both programs and events? Yes, absolutely. If your program or event aligns with the eligible criteria, and your organization aligns with that, absolutely. If we have community sponsors for events as well, where do we list them? Or do you need us to? If you have community sponsors, you can list them. There'll be a question in the funding section that asks if you have any additional funding or how else you might be paying for your program event. And if you're also receiving any other grants from the City of Vancouver for the event. Okay. I have a nonprofit and we are registered with the state, but we are still waiting for 501c3 confirmation from the IRS. Do we need a fiscal sponsor? Great question. I am going to have to follow up with you on that one, 'cause I don't want to give any bad information. So, Kat, I will follow up with you. I have your email address. Martha, we cannot apply for a grant to a fundraising event, correct? Yes. So the ineligible expenses, I did not list those out. Those are listed on our website. Any event that costs money to attend, any event that includes political activities, there are a few other. Um, but that is listed on our website. I can post them in the chat as well afterwards. Oh, let me post the link to the website. And I have it pulled up, so
Coco,
so yes.
this is Martha. I have a clarifying question on that. Okay, so you said if it's any kind of event that people pay money to attend, does that mean like National Night Out where donations are accepted, or you have sponsors, they have sponsors or they have tents or whatever. And so you'd be kind of looking for a combination of like grant money and maybe an offset from your sponsorships. Can you clarify that? Because National Night Out doesn't cost anything to attend, but it is a little bit of a fundraiser.
Yeah, so in that case, because it's donation based, you're not requiring anyone to pay any money to access the event. That would still qualify. It is what is disqualified is when the only way to access the event requires someone to pay money. So the events and programs need to be, well, I would say programs because sometimes those are specific, but events need to be open. So grant funds cannot be used to pay for purchase of real property or any capital improvements. Park amenities such as benches, picnic tables, or playground equipment. Starting a new community garden in a city park or on city property. However, if you're hoping to do any sort of community garden on private property, that is eligible. Any plantings in city parks are not eligible. Funds cannot be used to pay for utility bills, salaries for staff, alcohol, marijuana, or any illegal substances, political activities, fundraising events, and events that cost money to attend. And so I do want to note salaries for staff are ineligible. However, if you are working with a contractor for let's say you do a community mural and you contract with an artist, if they're an independent contractor, that is still eligible. It is just salaries that are not. So I'm going to dive back into the questions. If we have offered the program before, but we no longer have funding or never had funding, are we eligible? How about if we had the program or event and want to expand it? Yeah, that sounds like exactly what our grant is here for. So we want to be able to support programs that may be in need of funding, or if you're looking to expand it, absolutely. And definitely explain in your application those pieces because that really helps reviewers understand the full picture. What if your event is open to both kids and adults, general public, but mainly focus on kids? That is totally fine. That is totally fine. Shouldn't it be W-9, not W-2? It's very possible that it's a W-9 and that is a typo. So thank you, Stephen. I expect you will be emailing this presentation out. Yes. Yes, we are currently recording, and this recording will be posted to the website to review at any time. Is your $80,000 per grant cycle or for the entire year? Currently, $80,000 is for the entire year of 2026. Can a larger grant be applied to defined series of events. Yes, absolutely. You'll just outline in your application how each of those relates to our criteria, to the strategic plan, the council priorities, and you'll just want to make sure if there's multiple events or a series of anything that you include details for those connections. Level two funds are not fully, if level two funds are not fully funded, will you award more level one requests? So at this time, we have 10 available level two funds. If we are able to get more funding, we'll make an announcement and we'll have to discuss internally as a team how that's distributed, depending on how much we're able to procure, if we're able to. So more on that, more to come on that, if fingers crossed. How do we list separate events over the year in one grant application? Great question. You will, let's see, it'll be, I'm thinking through in my head exactly what the application looks like. It'll be program or project description. You'll like do an outline of each of those events, and then you'll explain how that contributes to the overall goal that you are hoping to achieve. So, and if you also have questions as you're going through your grant, that's a great time to reach out to me. We can hop on a Teams and screen share or a Zoom and screen share or on the phone, and we can go through it together. If we have other sponsors for our event, are we still eligible? Yes, absolutely. That's just something where we're looking in the grant or in the funding section, excuse me. We do have a box for you to add information about any other funding sources for your event or program, including any other city grants. Can funds be used to pay a teacher or a trainer? I would say for a teacher, if they're employed by the district, if that is the type of teacher, like a school teacher, the answer would be no. If it's a teacher or a trainer that is part of an organization that is being contracted, if they're an independent contractor, it's possible. So that is one of those situations. If you want to reach out to the neighborhood's email and give some specifics of the situation, we can talk through eligibility. I was noticing things funded in the past are events, parties. Would you accept an application for an architectural drawing so we can help our neighborhood association envision our trail program? That's a great question. So in the past, we have on the, did I put that in the chat? Did I actually do that, or I just copied it and gave you another? I kept going. Okay, here's the link to the grants website. On that website, we have a list of the grants that have been awarded in the past 2 years, so you can check that out. We've done the gamut of things from programs, events, support for neighborhoods, doing outreach, trying to expand communication. So you can look there to see what has been awarded in the past, but if it's not on that list, it doesn't mean it won't be funded. So still reach out and we can talk through any specifics. For that one, I'm thinking through eligibility. I believe that would be eligible in terms of like contracting with someone as part of a larger project. But definitely reach out and connect with me for some more details and we can talk through that. Is there a way to get a copy of the grant application offline so that we can prepare it and then copy and paste it to upload? I've had the program time out on me before. Yes, once the application goes live, I'm able to download a PDF of the questions. So just reach out to the neighborhood's email that I'll share at the end that I keep saying I'm going to share at the end. And we can send you a PDF of those questions. Can funds be used to document the event? Video, photos, social media. Funds that can be a piece of it. I would say the review team would want to see some more information about how that supports your larger goal and how that supports connecting the community. But it's an eligible expense, yes. I didn't hear. Can we apply to more than one grant? No. So this year and last year, organizations are only eligible to apply for one single grant in any category. Could a grant be applied to a conference registration for leadership or other interested volunteers? NUSA, Neighborhoods USA Conference. We have in the past supported registration as a piece of the application, as a piece of the like larger programmatic or programmatic goal. I will say we have not funded, like if you're looking for any sort of like airfare, transportation, coverage, that would not be eligible. If we are not awarded any March grants, will we be eligible to apply for June and September grants, or will our March application remain open for the other grants? That's a great question. The application itself will remain eligible, but it will not automatically be submitted to those other application review periods. So it would go back to you and you would need to resubmit, but you would be welcome to resubmit. Thank you. Thank you. So I think, oh no, I'm not. Am I? No. I think I'm at the end of the chat questions. If anyone wants to ask an out loud question or ask more in the chat. Oh, here's one more in the chat. What happens if all the funds are not used up in a year? Fantastic question. Because the community and neighborhood grant is a part of our general funds for the city of Vancouver, those get reallocated into the city budget, and that's where we're at now, where we're requesting for those funds to come back to us, but it's a whole process where it may not, depending on overall city needs. So that is hopefully that answers that question. Good info. Great. Yeah. If anyone has any other questions, we have about 10, 12 minutes left, so I'm here to answer questions. And I keep promising you my email. Let's get there. There's my email address, and that is my phone number as well. You can call or text, and I would look forward to connecting with any of you as you're going through your application process.